All right, thank you very much for being with us on 89.7 Contact FM. The show you're listening to is One on One. The hashtag for those who are getting conversational and in touch with us and interactive is 101RW. My name is Eugene Anangwe. My guest in studio today is the Minister for East African Community Affairs in Rwanda, and she's Madame Valentine Rugwabiza. Did I pronounce it properly?
Precisely.
Thank you very much. I've been practicing a lot. Yes, and definitely thank you for joining us on One on One.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. Now, jumping into the issues of the day, because we don't have much time with us, we understand that you are newly appointed into this ministry, of course, coming from the Rwanda Development Board as the CEO, and your experience at the World Trade Organization. Let's look at this fast shift of responsibilities. Did you feel that this was too soon? Maybe when you appointed as RDB CEO, you had this fire burning in you that you said, I want to achieve this. And then a few weeks or months later, you moved into the Ministry of EAC. Did you feel like you were not enabled to or allowed to implement some of those plans you had for RDB?
Well, it's clearly a continuation. Mm-hmm. First of all, it can't be too soon. Mm-hmm. It's clearly a continuation. And I feel that with my new assignment, mm-hmm. I could not have been to a better school than the Rwanda Development Board, okay. Really, in terms of understanding and mastering the economy mm-hmm. In different sectors mm-hmm. of the economy, also mastering our business environment, and what are the real challenges we are confronted to. Both within our borders and beyond our borders. Mm. Now, within our borders, clearly, we did a terrific job, I think. But beyond our borders, that is very much the focus of the East African integration.
This is where more has to be done, right?
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about your first assignment or first meeting outside of, inside your responsibilities as Minister of EAC. You're in Dar es Salaam a few days ago. There was this meeting on the economic partnership agreements with the European Union. Plus, of course, I'm sure there are so many other things that were talked about in this meeting. What news do you bring for us from there?
Well, let me first of all say that the meeting didn't take place in Dar es Salaam, but in Arusha, actually, yeah. where, as you know, the EAC Secretariat has its headquarters. And I would say that the meeting achieved a number of things. But just coming to what you mentioned, the economic partnership agreement, we were able to reach a common position finally among all the 5 EAC partner states. Mm-hmm. And that is not a little thing. It's mm-hmm. not a little achievement. It is a prerequisite to be able to get a common position and to get
do business
a deal
with the EU, yes.
To get a deal with the EU. Mm. So that was not a small achievement. Now, these are not negotiations that started just the day before yesterday mm-hmm. or very recently. These negotiations have been going on for a number of years. And today, we are left only with really 5 open matters. And I will say quite honestly, not such critical matters. Mm-hmm. So that was a very good progress. And this is the last mile of these negotiations.
Let's talk about those problems that probably were bottlenecks or standing on the way of having this agreement signed between the EAC and the EU. We saw the meetings or negotiations and consultations going into midnight. You know, we have experts talking, consulting until you had this decision to now sign the draft agreement. What were those bottlenecks? What were those concerns that the East African community had?
Let me say, first of all, that it is a common feature mm-hmm. of trade negotiations mm-hmm. to really stay on and up to very late, or if you like, very early hours mm-hmm. In the day. Now, those specific issues, they are issues that should be expected in a free trade agreement between 2 blocks. Mm-hmm. And this is what was happening. So let me just mention one of these issues that has to do with taxes on exports. Clearly, the community, members of the community, the 5 members of the community and the entire community would like to keep some flexibility to be able to put on taxes on some exports, but for a limited period of time, for limited number of products, mm-hmm. and clearly in specific circumstances,
yes.
including reasons that have to do with food security. Let's say, for example, if we find ourselves in a situation, if we were to find ourselves in the community in a situation of food insecurity, then we would like to have the possibility to put on taxes, let's say, on export of specific crops.
It seems
so that's some of the issues. Those are some of the issues which were discussed and where we were able to find a common position.
They seem easy to make a decision on, just say, okay, why not, go ahead. But then what was the reason as to why it took all this time to get to this common understanding?
Well, it looks easy only on the surface of it. Do remember that we are 5 different countries. We form one community, but clearly when it comes to the number of products, when it comes to the time, there were differences. Some countries wanted to have a little bit more time than the EU was able to provide for. So there were specific issues.
Okay.
And we were able to really harmonize our position on all those issues.
Next step from here?
Well, next step from here, now that has been solved, well, clearly there is some cleaning of the text that still need to be done, and it's a text to tango. So while we have reached a common position, we need on those specific 5 open issues, we still need to meet one last time with our EU partners. The differences were marginal in our positions and the position of the EU on those 5 issues. So we still need to meet with them, to reach out to them, and find a way, find a common ground, find a way out. I am confident that way out will be found.
It will be found.
When I looked at the differences remaining today, and will not go into the nitty-gritty of just the textual differences, but when I look at what are the differences remaining today, I'm very confident that we will have a deal very soon.
So it takes 2 to tango, you say. Do you feel that your EU partners are ready to get on the dance floor with the East African Community member states and do the tango dance?
They are committed, and what is of essence to us today, we want that to happen sooner than later.
All right. Let's talk about the private sector. Today, you had a breakfast meeting with the Private Sector Federation, and of course, a look at how the private sector can, be grown and be groomed to be able to, go in line with our Vision 2020 of having a private sector-led economy. And you said that your ministry or the government at large is ready to support the private sector to achieve this. Maybe if we go to the nitty-gritty in brief of some of those immediate term things that you are going to do from your ministry to see this happen.
To support the private sector, first of all, is by making sure that the community, what we have agreed on in the community is actually happening. And those are very specific provisions. The community, as you know, has a common, we really have a customs union.
Yes.
Now, is this custom union being implemented? So we want just to ensure that it is being implemented. And I can respond to that question. It is actually being implemented. Several provisions of the customs union are currently being implemented.
But others
we
are
need
not.
to consolidate what has been done and make sure that we keep a close monitoring of what has not been done and what is not happening, or if new barriers are being put in place. And that was what was very, I would say, very useful. We had a very useful conversation with the business community this morning, where they were able to report some of the barriers, the very recently put in place barriers, we were not aware of. So this is clearly a conversation that needs to be maintained so that we are made aware of what is happening in a timely manner on the ground, not a year after, in a timely manner that equips us then to engage our counterparts, but also to engage other business communities and engage our counterparts, ministries in charge of EAC affairs in other partner states, and try to remove those barriers.
The worry most of the time you'll see or hear from the business community is that, yes, we do have meetings like this and big words and of course assurances are made, but then after those meetings, my friend, it's business as usual. They're back to those new non-tariff barriers being created and probably not full commitment by other member states. So how do we address this once and for all?
Let me first of all say that the integration process is a dynamic process. So there is not such a point in an integration process where we'll say, well, these are removed once for all. The nature of barriers is changing.
They evolve.
Itself. They evolve. The nature of barriers are evolving. We will see as the tariff goes down, and today in the community, tariffs at least for products that comply with the rules of origin of the community are not submitted to tariff. As the tariff really are removed, what we are seeing the emergence of non-tariff barriers. So this is a normal part of the evolution of an integration, of a deeper integration. We need to continue to monitor those non-tariff barriers, more than monitoring those non-tariff barriers. And this was not just what you will say, just a meeting where a conversation was taking place for the sake of a conversation.
Just conversation.
A commitment which was made at that meeting is that, first of all, we have a clear list of those
each and
barriers
every barriers that you want to
that
eliminate.
was reported this morning. And at the next breakfast meeting, we're going to report on the progress that has been achieved in terms of removing those barriers.
Maybe just to set the record clear, when you say that these barriers keep evolving, that as we sort out this one, others are expected to come up and it's a normal phenomenon. Just to clarify, are you trying to say that then this whole dream of fully integrating without any barriers is not achievable?
What I'm saying here is that when I'm saying that it is a dynamic process, we'll not get to a position. We need to remain very vigilant and to keep on monitoring. What I'm saying here is that we can't afford to be complacent. We can't just say, well, we got to a position where we are today, where we have removed more than 17 non-tariff barriers, where we are left with 9 new non-tariff barriers. Well, we can't relax. What I'm saying is that an integration process, we can't relax.
You have to continue.
And we have to continue to keep up the monitoring, to keep up the pressure, to keep up the advocacy.
Now, let's talk about the common citizens. Maybe most of the time there are those who feel this language is not for us. The common citizens who are in the EAC or some of the member states of the EAC, they say, we don't really understand what's going on. Because today, from a research that I was reading, or findings of a survey that I was reading, more than half of citizens in Rwanda don't really understand even the meaning of this whole EAC integration process. Does that figure worry you? That you have more than 50% who don't really understand what's really going on in this whole integration process?
It speaks to us. It is a challenge. It tells us that we need to increase our efforts in terms of explaining, raising the awareness, not only about the opportunities that are provided, but what it means, how those opportunities could be turned into real benefits. Now, the citizens understand very clearly that when the days it used to take to move from Mombasa to Kigali for a truck are cut down from 21 days to 5 days, and that the cost is cut down by more than $1,000. That is something the citizens understand very clearly. The citizens understand very clearly the fact that they are no longer requested to use a passport. They don't need a passport.
This is for 3 countries.
Absolutely.
Yes.
To be able to move, at least between 3 countries that are part of the East Africa community. So that is something they understand very well, more than understanding.
So is this figure a misrepresentation of the facts on the ground?
Just, let me finish on this. Just during the first part of this year, more than 500,000 of Rwandans have used that facility. They have used their IDs, they have used their student cards,
to cross over.
To cross over. So, which shows that this is something they understand very clearly because they're making use of it.
So what is it that they don't understand, this 56%?
Well, that was a survey. This survey is talking to us. This survey is telling us that, well, we need to do more work.
In which areas specifically? Because you've pointed a better picture of some of the areas that they understand. So which are those areas that you feel then you need to work on?
Well, those areas where we have achieved a few things, but also, let's face it, we have not reached where we will want to be in terms of regional integration. So part of the regional integration has to do with the common market protocol. Now, the common market protocol entails a number of freedoms, including free movement of workers and so on and forth. So the citizens need to understand that, well, today, we should have access to, if they want to work, they should have access to the Kenyan market. They should have access to the Ugandan market. They should have access to the Tanzanian market. Now, is this happening as of today? It is happening at different speeds.
Sure.
We have done our part on the side of Rwanda, and we have more than today more than 1,000 Kenyan who have received who have their work permit, but it is not being reciprocated. So this is clearly part of what we need to work on. So those are some of the elements, in my view, the citizens don't understand.
Do you think it is intentional? Because we are seeing, as you said, you've even given the numbers, more than thousands of Kenyans who have received work permits, and we've seen also some companies from other EAC countries setting up shop here under the common market protocol. But we see very few of Rwandan companies setting up outside of Rwanda. Is this intentional, or is it an issue of the business community, or is it an issue of the laws or the way that things have to be done to enable them to be able to operate outside of Rwanda?
Yes, it's exactly where you handed. I don't see a problem. I don't see a shortage of will here. But the integration process is a pretty complex process in itself. It involves approximation of laws and policies. It involves harmonization sometimes. It involves mutual recognitions in terms of the qualifications. So it is a process that involves all that. And we have to continue to work on all those aspects.
So in your opinion, who is to be talked to in this particular situation? What do you think is the issue that is causing very few of Rwandan companies not to set up shop in the other East African countries?
Well, first of all, it is not that the business community will not like to. They will want to. They made it very clear this morning. But some regulations, some laws that are today discriminating against non-national have to be harmonized in those countries. So there is an advocacy that is involved. We need to continue to advocate for that. We need to continue to engage labor ministries in charge of labor. And this is what we are doing through the vehicles of the Northern Corridor, the possibility on the Northern Corridor, and the East African Community.
Because maybe when we talk of the citizens, some of the answers that they always want to hear are some of the answers on issues of the monetary union. They want to hear the issues of how far are we with the political federation. These are some of the answers probably that come to the mind of the common citizens when you talk to them about the East African community. So as we speak today, where are we at in these two areas?
Well, it is, first of all, the integration is gradual. The integration has phases. And the 4 phases, clearly, we have the customs union, then we move to the common market protocol. Then we move to the monetary union, and then the last phase of the integration, which is the political federation. Now, clearly, this is not to say that the last phase is less important than the first phase, but then we need to build blocks here. So we're making progress on all fronts. You just mentioned the monetary union. Well, the monetary union protocol was signed a little bit less than a year. It was signed last year, in November last year. And it entails itself a number of phases and in terms of the implementation, and this is starting to be worked on.
So are we going to see it anytime soon? Do we have a timeline? Do we have a process that we can tell the citizens?
The timeline which was given was 10 years.
Okay.
Was 10 years from the moment of the signing of the protocol in November 2013. But clearly, we would like to see it happening sooner than later. So the name of the game today as far as Rwanda is concerned, it is to speed up the implementation.
All right.
Speed up the implementation regarding the common market protocol, consolidate and widen the implementation of the customs union, and speed up the implementation of the monetary union.
All right. Let's move a bit away from the protocol words and those technical parts for some people.
You brought them, right?
And that's why I'm moving out of them for now. And let's talk about matters health. Recently, there was a meeting in Uganda by health experts or officials from the ministries of health to talk about the positioning of the East African community in terms of dealing with Ebola. And I'm sure at the East African Council of Ministers level or the other advanced levels in the EAC, this issue has been talked about of how the region could deal with a possible outbreak in the EAC. Today, as we speak, what are we able to do as a region when it comes to tackling the Ebola crisis, if it were to happen today?
Well, first of all, I think as a country, you probably will have spoken with the minister in charge of health. I think as a country, we're really doing very well in terms of protecting our population. And that is to be commended. As a region, with the flow in the movement of people, we need to make sure that we coordinate our actions. So earlier this month, a sectoral meeting of health ministers took place in Nairobi, and they discussed precisely that, the measures that they were going to put in place, how they need to protect in terms of just checking all passengers coming from, I would say, suspect regions or suspect countries more specifically, but also put certain measures at borders. So that harmonization took place between the ministers in charge of health.
So in conclusion, as we finish off, it's important to also look at the positive side of the good that is happening in the region. You've talked about the time that it takes to transport goods from Mombasa and across the northern corridor. What else can we tell the people that these are the good news? These are the stories. 7 years after joining this whole process of East African community integration, what good news can we tell Rwandans that these are the things we've been able to do and the way of the future looks brighter?
We've been able to reduce that time you mentioned. We've been able to remove those different non-tariff barriers. We've been able, in part of the community, and those barriers, by the way, are not removed only on the northern corridor, they are removed also on the central corridor right now. And we're expecting to roll out completely the implementation of this single custom territory, and again, to break down sometimes what look like very big words. It's really about just clearing the goods at the first point of entry and being able just to deliver the goods at their final destination, immediately after clearing them. And this is happening today between Dar es Salaam and Kigali as well. So those are very good news, and we're seeing a drastic reduction in the time it will take, but also in the money. The cost itself. But other good news have to do with the IDs being able to travel really between countries with IDs. That is something I consider we have all reasons to celebrate, because that touches directly the life of the citizen. Other good news have to do with just the time of work at borders. Well, some of the borders now have moved completely. The time of opening the borders have moved to increase to 24 hours. A border such as Gatuna is open 24 hours. Others have increased the number of operation at borders, which means that again is facilitating and has an impact directly. It means something to the people because they can move freely. They don't have to wait for specific hours or very limited number of hours per day. It means also something for their trade.
So meaning if these are within embedded, all the good things are coming.
Yes. Absolutely. But those are things that are happening. It's not that they are coming. They're not coming in the near future. Those are things that are happening.
Taking place already.
They are taking place already. They are happening today. one post borders. So putting posts at different borders and cutting down, streamlining on the procedure, putting officials from both countries in one post and allowing them to speed up the process of just clearing citizen and so on and forth. So those are the things that are happening. And then building some of the infrastructure, missing link infrastructure. So those are things that are happening already today.
Okay. So in conclusion, before the next cabinet reshuffle is done and maybe possibly you're moved from the Ministry of EAC, what are those some of the key things that you want to say, by the time I leave this portfolio, these are the things that I want to have achieved?
Let me say that first of all, there is a continuity in the plan, in the plan and in the priorities of the government. We are working under a very clear program, our development strategy. And our development strategy, I would just like to emphasize that it doesn't depend on individuals moving from one portfolio to another portfolio. The plan is very clear. And in that plan and in that vision that is very clear, regional integration and economic integration is one of the key pillars, is the sixth pillar of our Vision 2020. And in that integration today, seeing where I'm not starting from scratch, seeing where I found the integration process, clearly we need, where I started, to consolidate and to widen the implementation of the single custom territory.
So there's nothing that you feel individually, you feel, yes.
We need really to accelerate the implementation of the Common Market Protocol. The Common Market Protocol still at very, very early stages. We need to accelerate the implementation of the protocol.
So in other words, that is that area that you really feel has to really be pushed.
We have to work on that. Another area where clearly we still have room for improvement has to do with the involvement of non-government actors in the integration processes. And the business community, civil society, and that's why we've been focusing in conversations with the business community.
Okay. So when you're out of office, what do you do with yourself in terms of your leisure time, when you're not thinking of protocols and all that?
Well, you will have to invite me another time.
There's nothing you can share with us?
I think you will have to invite me another time
to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Particularly. Definitely. We have very many shows that I'm sure we'll be able to get that platform to get to know from you on that.
Good.
Ambassador, thank you very much for being with us on One-on-One.
Thank you for having me.
Asante Sana. One-on-One comes to a wrap at that particular moment. And of course, my guest in studio was the Minister of East African Community. And definitely, she's been able to explore or talk to us about the many things that have been happening in the corridors of integration. We're hoping that you will also be part of this process and, of course, own it. Definitely. My name is Eugene Anangwe, signing off.